Welcome back, everyone. It's the Bourbon Judge. We are back at it and going to have a little bit of fun with some Bernheim Barrel Proof Wheat Whiskey. Yes, Bernheim Barrel Proof, the wheated whiskey. So I'm really excited for this one because think back, I think it was 2 episodes ago, I did an episode on whiskey that, even I couldn't find, right? I know a lot of times people say, whiskey tubers, they get everything. They have access to every single bottle. And so forth. And this is just a standard bottle that even myself, I could not find. So we're going to dive into this one and I'll tell you how I got it, as well as everything else that we kind of learned about the Bernheim Barrel Proof Whiskey. Cool? All right. Before we do so, real quick, I want to give a huge shout out to our newest patrons. Let's give a shout out to Chris Rowland and Tim Brady. Yes, so Chris and Tim Brady. Not Tom Brady, Tom's bigger brother, cooler brother, I should say. So Tim Brady and Chris Rowland, thanks for becoming patrons and supporting the Bourbon Judge. As well as, honestly, thank you to all my other patrons as well. We truly do have a blast. So Tim and Chris, welcome to the Judge family. Really looking forward to having you guys join the family, as well as thank you for everyone else who watches the channel as well. All right. So Bernheim Barrel Proof. So again, a couple episodes ago, I mentioned some whiskeys that I was hunting for all year, and I could not find it. One of my patrons, this is actually available in his area, so he's like, "Hey Judge, I'm gonna send you a bottle." So I really do appreciate it. Thank you to my patron for sending me this bottle, so I can actually go ahead and get it on the channel. Really do appreciate it. So when you think about Bernheim wheat whiskey, first and foremost, this is a wheat whiskey. It is not a wheated bourbon. So what is the difference? A wheat whiskey means that at least 51% of the mash bill has to be wheat. So it's a wheat whiskey. Where a wheated bourbon, it's still a bourbon, at least 51% or greater in the mash bill has to be corn, but the second primary ingredient in a wheated bourbon has to be wheat, right? So that's the key difference. So this is purely a wheat whiskey. So coming from Heaven Hill, when you think of Bernheim wheat whiskey, many of us think back to the original product, which many of us have all had. Looks just like this, except for it doesn't say barrel proof, of course. It's a 90 proof whiskey coming in at about $30 to $35, so very affordable. You can find it all over. It's the Heaven Hill sub-brand. It's known as like their wheat whiskey, and I always enjoyed it and liked it. So when I heard that earlier this year that this one was coming out, I was like, wow, the barrel proof. I'm hunting for it all year, couldn't find it until, again, one of my patrons was kind enough to send me a bottle, so thank you very much. All right, what else do we know about the Bernheim wheat whiskey, the new barrel proof? Kind of similar to, so obviously with this being a Heaven Hill product, think about it, it's similar to, they're going to be releasing it in batches, similar to like Elijah Craig and Larceny, where Elijah Craig and Larceny come out 3 times per year. The A batch comes out in January, the B in May, and the C batch in September. Kind of similar, but yet different a little bit. The Bernheim wheat whiskey barrel proof will actually only be released 2 times per year. So kind of similar, but not the exact same. Only 2 batches. So they're going to be doing an A batch and a B batch. The A batch being the first release of the year and the B batch being the second release. So for today's episode, we're going to dive into the B batch. This is B923. So B, the second batch, coming out in September, and the 23 for the year. So B923, this one's coming in at exactly 120.4 proof. Yep, 120.4. All right, I've already poured a little bit of this, so let's get into the nose. I'm interested to see how similar or different this is versus like a wheated bourbon. So just kind of interested to see how similar or different this is, especially being that it's a cast strength version, or barrel proof, versus the other version, which is only 90 proof. That one was obviously a really good whiskey, but it'd be very interesting to see how different it is. All right, let's get into the nose. So as I would expect with a wheat whiskey, tons, and I mean tons of like baking spices. Oh man. Tons of baking spices. A lot of cinnamon in the nose. Got some cinnamon. A dash of like some nutmeg. A little bit of caramel. Good smidge of like oak. But very like baking spices forward. You almost get like, even like from an actual fruit standpoint, almost like an apple meets pear kind of note in there. Oh yeah, big time. Damn, big time. All right, what's the mash bill, Judge? To give you the exact mash bill. Again, 51% wheat, 37% corn, and 12% malted barley. And from an age standpoint, it says right here on the side, which I love. They're very transparent over at Bernheim / Heaven Hill. This is the whiskey's age anywhere from 7 to 9 years. So 7 to 9 years. They're blending it together, but all cask strength. So not bad from an age standpoint. 7 to 9 year barrel proof whiskey. Whew, nice, really nice. All right, a $65 bottle. That's the MSRP. So when you do find it, MSRP should be about $65, right? That's the true MSRP on this bottle. And from what I'm told, it's typically not marked up above that. So you might find it for a couple dollars more, a couple dollars less, but hopefully most stores are still selling it truly at MSRP and not doing the whole secondary prices and all that stuff. All right, tons of baking spices, the apple, the pear note. All right, can't wait to dive into this. Hey, real quick, 3 quick easy favors. Number 1, hit the like button. Number 2, drop me a comment. Let me know what are your thoughts. Have you tried the Bernheim Barrel Proof Wheat Whiskey? And if so, what are your thoughts? And last but not least, please make sure you also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get notification each and every time I release new content. Cheers, everybody. Ooh. Oh, man. Damn. What's in my mind right now? I'm thinking back to Thanksgiving. This would have been great with Thanksgiving. I mean, big time. Oh, man. Very much classic. The nose matching the palate. The front of the palate is all of those baking spices. Big time, like the cinnamon, a smidge again of like nutmeg in there. But in the back of the palate, and the finish, nice long finish too, by the way. What's the proof again? 120.4. The back of the palate had all like the apple and the pear notes. This would have been fantastic with Thanksgiving. Let me get another little sip real quick. And then at the end, I'm gonna give you 2 judgments. A, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a judgment whether or not this is a buy or leave it on the shelf or split decision. And then I'm gonna compare it actually to a wheated bourbon. Wheated bourbon obviously slightly different, but I do have a wheated bourbon here just to kind of compare and contrast. Give it another little sip. Cheers again, everyone. Wow. Very good whiskey. Very, very good. All right. While I pour some more, I'm going to bring out the other bottle, a wheated bourbon. Similar, but yet different, obviously, right? The wheated bourbon is going to have at least 51% in the mash bill being corn, and then the secondary ingredient is obviously wheat, right? But similar, but different. So, the question is, Judge, before we get to the comparison, is the Bernheim Barrel Proof Wheat Whiskey a buy, a do not buy, or a split decision? I would say for a wheated whiskey, or a wheat whiskey rather, I think it's a buy. It's actually really, really good. It's exactly, I would say this, there's 2 things. Number 1, you have to like wheat whiskeys. I know some people out there, I know even some of my whiskey friends are not big wheat whiskey fans. So if you don't like wheated whiskeys, or wheat whiskeys rather, then maybe don't go for this. But in my opinion, if you want something that's a little bit more sweet, a little bit more like baking spices forward, and you love like that softer kind of a palate, sweeter type of a palate, in that case, I think you'll love the Bernheim wheat whiskey. I think it's a really good bottle, and I'm glad Heaven Hill made a barrel-proof version of it. Thank you. Oh! All right. But now, let's compare it to Old Elk. So this is an Old Elk wheated bourbon. This is actually a store pick, or a single barrel rather, from the Philadelphia Whiskey Society, coming in at 114.3 proof. So very close proof-wise. Be interesting to see the similarities or differences. All right, let's see if we got a mash bill in this bad boy. I don't know if we do have the actual mash bill. We don't have a mash bill, but we have the age. The age on this, the Old Elk, was 5 years. We don't have the exact mash bill, but it's a wheated bourbon. So we know with a wheated bourbon, again, it has to be at least 51% corn. And then again, the secondary ingredient, of course, is wheat. All right, so let's go ahead and see the similarities and the differences. So I'm going to move first over to the wheated bourbon, the Old Elk. Let's see. So similar nose. even with the wheated bourbon, very similar nose. The key difference, I would say, though, with the Old Elk is you have a little bit more. Is that? Yeah, it is. A little bit more caramel, brown sugar notes, traditional bourbon notes, where this is pure baking spices and extremely like sweet and savory in a way. This is a little bit more traditional bourbon notes. More oak, more caramel, more brown sugar. Okay, all right. Cheers, everybody. That's good. Damn, that's good. That's pretty good. Oh man. Let me get a little bit more. That's pretty good. That Old Elk. Not a bad job there, Philadelphia Whiskey Society. That is pretty good. All right, smidge more. But see, this too, everything, the nose matches the palate. Because this is a wheated bourbon, it sips much closer to well, it is a bourbon. It sips more traditional to a true bourbon. A lot more caramel, more oak, more brown sugar, a little bit more leather as well. So the palate is a bit more bold, a bit more spicy, if you will. Where the Bernheim is a little bit sweeter, a little bit more softer. So it kind of depends on the experience. If I was sipping them blind, which one would I probably prefer? I like wheat whiskey a lot. I also like a wheated bourbon. I personally, and I mean me personally, I personally probably would lean toward a wheated bourbon. For me personally, in this case, the Old Elk. It's a little bit more well-rounded for my traditional everyday whiskey experience. However, I do love the Bernheim as well. In fact, I'm gonna get another little sip of this. It's truly what you're looking for. Hey friends, until the next time, peace, cheers, most important, salute. Take care. See ya.